This makes me uncomfortable.
Oh my goodness. Welcome to the This Makes Me Uncomfortable podcast. Here we will discuss all the things that make us uncomfortable. I'm your co-host, Allura.
And I'm your co-host, Jade. Today we're going to be talking about the podcast itself. So its conception, its execution, and where we're going in the future. So let's get started, Allura.
All right. Before we get started though, let's put out a disclaimer. This podcast is meant to be lighthearted, funny, in a place of comfort in the midst of all the uncomfortableness in the world. We are not experts in any way, any shape, or any form. No. And all opinions, thoughts, and sentiments shared are our own. We mean no offense to anyone. And this podcast is a space to share a laugh and connect. So let's actually get started. We thought we should start with our origin story of the podcast. And that's kind of like our theme for today is origin stories.
Yes, we're just casting ourselves as superheroes, assuming that everyone listening, all two of you, want to know how this came to be. And it's going to become your Bible of sorts, you know?
I think so.
It's a creation story.
So I was actually looking at the document because I was just like, when did we actually come up with this idea? And it was in February of this year.
Yeah, and it's October now.
It's October now. We were actually supposed to start filming in March, but then I ruined everything. And
as you
I
always
do. Literally.
Getting an education and whatever. It's so distracting from what's really
got a new job the week we were supposed to start filming, and I was like, let's just table this, shelf this for a later time.
Stereotype. All successful and hardworking.
Oh gosh, gross. Makes me sick.
So now we're here, finally doing what matters, and we're just, throwing jobs, education to the wind, because what the people need is for us to talk shit. It's gonna make the world a better
literally. That's what makes the world go round. So our origin story, how it came to be. So we came into work one day, all days, I think it was probably a Tuesday. We were recounting our weekends, and that's just the best time for me because I just am always just obsessed with Jade so much, and I want to know exactly what's going on in her life, all her emotions, thoughts, and feelings. When I didn't see her,
too many details. And I know she already has video footage and pictures of my weekend.
I do.
Just pretending.
100%. Yeah. So, but we were surrounded by so many people, but we were just saying super uncomfortable, traumatic things to each other just in broad daylight and in public. And I forgot who said it, but someone was like, oh, we'll just save that for the podcast, or we'll just, say that when we have the podcast. And this had never come up prior, but then that thought just continued to populate our mind and our brain space the whole day. So then we kept on coming up with more ideas and segments and all kinds of things. And so by the end of that week, I just sent Jade a Google Doc. And then the next time I saw she added it at 2 a.m.
Google Doc addicts. Once you share something with me or Allura, it's going to be populated with 10,000 ridiculous things, showing a true manifestation of anxiety.
So much anxiety. And so then I just looked and I was like, Jade, we have an actual podcast idea. This is so in depth. I had merch ideas. I asked her, I was like, Jade, we have to start thinking about merchandise. Mind you, this wasn't even
G-strings all day.
Literally, she was like G-strings, and I was like, that's so on brand. I was like, condoms, also so on brand. And yeah, it was just so funny. We had so many topics.
And I think that all the people surrounding us, regardless of how like verifiably uncomfortable they were by listening to us talk, they were fueling the fire. Like every time we were in a Zoom meeting and we were blowing up the chat with our back and forth and our banter, everyone was like, oh, you should go on a stand-up comedy tour. You guys are like so fast on the keyboard and just like cracking everyone up, and nobody's paying attention to what's actually happening in the Zoom meeting
at all.
Me and you are going back and forth. And so they were like goading us, like, yes, become a star, start a podcast. And so naturally our easily malleable minds were like, oh, you said I should do something? Of course, we're workaholics.
Let's do it.
More.
Yeah.
So it's everyone else's fault.
Right. Never our own. Yeah, so that's kind of the origin story and how it came to be. We just actually, I think this is more of an excuse to just like hang out with you more. But now we can just share our conversations with other people while still just hanging out. And it's great.
Like carving out time of our busy schedules to hang out.
Yeah.
And also, I think, and hopefully people will hear this as we record more and more, but Allura and I have a personality compatibility and a understanding with humor that is unparalleled. Like, I can't really joke with anyone else in the world the way I do with Allura. So this is our time to giggle. So I think that... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go, because I love you more. And there's that laugh. You gotta have this laugh on recording. This is gonna go down in like radio podcast Hall of Fame.
Literally. No, I was just gonna say, like, I think the first time my mom like saw us two together, later she was like, you guys have a really interesting relationship. And I was just like, yeah. Interesting. I know you're so jealous of it. Like,
yeah, I think that's what a lot of people say. They're just like, you and Allura are very close.
It's kind of concerning.
So I think that in order for everyone to get to know this special relationship that we have and why we want to invade the ear holes of everybody else with our relationship,
so invasive,
we kind of have to get to know each other, or let people get to know us a little bit more. So we're going to talk a little bit about who we were as awkward, sad, and angry children. And how that...
Oh my gosh, I got chills.
How that made us these stunning adults that you just want to listen to and watch all day.
Yes.
So, Allura, would you like to start first?
I thought you were going to go first.
Oh, I can.
Please go first, because I just love listening to you talk.
Oh boy, that's sign one of a mental health issue. So, I'm older, so there's a lot more stories to tell.
Exactly.
So please ask me questions along the way, because if I get lost into a maze, a labyrinth, if you will, of sad stories, if it's getting too uncomfortable for this makes me uncomfortable, you just...
I won't stop it.
Yeah, I know. You love the triggers. You just dig in.
I'm obsessed with the triggers.
So a little bit about me. So I grew up in Los Angeles, like basically... it was one of those places that they attach a lot of words to cover up the fact that it's a project, like it's a slum for, recent immigrants. So my mom is from Vietnam, and my dad is a very different background. So he's like a Norwegian American surfer boy from Orange County. And if people are thinking like, ooh, there's like a sexy war story behind this, and she's like the product of some kind of epic tale happening in the jungle with bombs exploding, you are completely wrong, and you should be ashamed of yourself, because that's kind of racist. But my parents just like met in a post office, and we're both kind of desperate. A post office. Yeah. My dad worked at the post office, so that's
a stereotype.
I know, Norwegians, am I right? They love their mail. Send it out on a husky. Um, yeah, so they met, and I was a happy little accident. And
Aren't we
so,
all?
yeah, I know, who plans for babies? So
Ew.
square. So yeah, my parents didn't stay together for obvious reason. This is not like a product of love or anything. This is just like a little desperation and wine. So I grew up with my mom in this housing project, like for like a housing development for low income and recent immigrated families. It's a bunch of bullshit as a project. And pretty much growing up there, I was left to my own devices. You know, I think a lot of us are, especially of my generation, growing up in the 80s. The parenting model was okay, kids got food, like just let them run, and hopefully they come back at sundown. And my mom was working and she was young, she's still dating and everything. So she was busy with her own stuff. And so I was left to my own devices, figuring out how to go to school and, go out and play without getting shot. Because this project that I grew up in, I don't know if I've told you this, Allura, but there was like shootings on a regular basis. There was this couple who lived in front of us who was always fighting, and the lady shot him through the hand like some old west, like high noon stuff, like a bullet hole through his palm. There was like all kinds of gang shootings, and we'd have to like stay inside a lot. So I think this is kind of the environment where I fostered a lot of my love for reading. And thank goodness for my dad, because my dad would send me books, and I would see him for like a day every other weekend, like on a Sunday, and he would always take me to the bookstore. So I had like this stockpile of books, which was a new thing for my mom's family, because my grandmother, love her so much, one of the smartest women I have ever met in my life, but she didn't have a formal education. So it's not like my maternal side of the family grew up with books or anything. In fact, I used to get in trouble for reading books because it was seen as like a waste of time. Like, okay, you're a woman in this family, like you got to go out and work. So that total immigrant refugee mentality of like hustle, hustle, hustle. So here I am in the projects, like afraid of getting shot outside or getting kidnapped or whatever, because everyone wants a cute mixed race child to barter with on the black market. Yeah, I was just kind of inside with my books a lot. And I think that that is definitely one of the vehicles that brought me to, the career that I chose of, being a teacher and a writer. And that offered me a lot of opportunities and luxuries, really privileges that led me to the job where I met Allura. So I think it was kind of, literature as a saving grace. And I mean, I was no advanced kid. I will never tell you that I'm a smart person. But I was reading like Sweet Valley High and stuff. And I was like, yeah. And then eventually I got into like Dean Koontz and Stephen King. And then I don't think it was, until I was much, much older and like already had degrees that I found books that were written by someone who looked and sounded somewhat like me. And then once that happened, like everything clicked, and I was like, this is a passion. This is important for me to do. It's my responsibility, given the privileged position that I have, to give back. And so I think that's why I pursued teaching and have stuck with it, even though it's one of the hardest fucking jobs ever, because you're giving, giving, giving. But it's very rewarding in the sense that I feel like I could give to those, the opportunities that I didn't have growing up and that I kind of had to fight and hustle for. Yeah, so that's a little bit about my background. I know I didn't really give anything juicy there. Do you have any like inappropriately invasive questions, Laura?
No, I was just gonna say that's so wholesome.
I know it came out way more positive than I usually am.
It really makes me uncomfortable, Jade. Like I wanted you to
Oh, see,
like trauma dump me.
it was a reverse psychology. You thought I was gonna get like into childhood trauma and abuse and stuff,
Totally.
but I went, oh no, like teaching is the
Like
future.
literature saved me. I was just like, ugh,
Yeah,
nauseating.
I gotta keep you guessing. I gotta keep you on your toes. But yeah, we
Well, you
can
got
get
me there.
uncomfortable and sad if you want. I have plenty of stories.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for those. Jade's like one of my favorite. No, she is just my favorite person just to listen to. Like, I could honestly listen to her talk all day. If I could record her voice and just wake up listening to her, I
Oh my
would.
god. So this podcast is just for you, you creep.
Quite literally. I am psychotic.
That's why you're like, no, you start and breathe
Literally.
heavily into the mic. And I am selfishly in it just to hear that laugh. I mean, if you can listen to that laugh and not smile, you know, there's something wrong with you. So, that's
Yeah.
very nice of you because I have a hard time listening to myself talk. Like by the end
Oh,
of the day,
same.
I'm like, for fuck's sake, shut up, you know, to myself. So the fact that you like it and I admire and respect and love you, that means a lot.
Ugh.
But this is getting way too positive. Tell me
Yeah, I
about your
don't like it.
childhood and all the worst parts about it.
Okay.
What about your childhood helped bring you to me, Allura?
Oh my goodness. I think everything helped point me to you. So I grew up in the North County Oceanside Vista area. My mother is Japanese. My father is Chamorro.
You might want to
Super fun
explain
stuff.
what that means because some people don't know what chamorro
Well,
means.
they can Google it.
Ooh, burn! Second, listeners, you're here to get an education.
Get an education. Yeah, so I'm Pacific Islander and Japanese. That's my generalization.
You know what, Allura? A lot of people think that I'm Japanese because I think they just hear the E's at the end and they're like, oh, you're Japanese.
Maybe.
Because, you
I
know,
mean, you
it's
do. I mean, Asians look
don't
like.
say it. But anyway, as my mom would say in the Asian hierarchy, you know, the Japanese are at the top. So
We're at the top.
I bow to you know, like Hello Kitty, Honda.
We are pretty iconic, aren't we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys are at the top, and I'm just on the bottom rung, scrambling from the jungle, trying to get to where you are. Anyway, continue. Your parents.
My parents. I not 100% sure, but I believe my parents met at a liquor store.
Ooh, hell yeah! Get a candy
Yeah.
bar.
Very much so. Yeah, so they met. Mother had me at like 18, 19. Father was in his like mid 20s probably. Super scandalous. Yeah, so they also knew they weren't going to be together. That's why I have two last names. And you know. So it was a lot of moving around, like a lot of transitioning. Like they had split custody, so like half or every other day I would be at my mom's and the other half at my dad's. And I'm still dealing with this kind of like code switching, like just like changing and shifting your behavior based on the environment you're in. And so I had to do a lot of that. And like I remember just I was a pretty good kid. Like I didn't really touch anything that like wasn't mine. I even asked for water if I was like thirsty, like, can I have some water to survive? Thank you so much. I just like asked permission for everything. But I remember like having major meltdowns, like maybe once or twice a year, just because I was keeping so much in and I was a super quiet kid. Like I was so shy. Like my
Same.
cousin had to like speak for me at like family gatherings or whatever because I just like would hide under a table. She would have to like translate my needs to everyone.
No, same. People in my family thought that I had a learning disability or that I was, you know, mentally or cognitively disabled because I think it was a crippling fear of, just parents who are a little volatile and, like you said, like an unstable living situation. And I can get into more of like all the crazy stuff that was happening in my house growing up, but I was so afraid that I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say anything. So people were like, oh my God, she can't talk. She's like a deaf mute or something.
Yeah,
And
literally.
so, yeah, that's
That's one
hard.
reason. Like, that's one way we're alike in so many ways and
Yeah.
gravitate towards each other.
And now we're letting it all out. All these years of
Literally.
suppressed rage is going to
Yeah.
come out. Yeah.
It's like a wave,
Mhm.
tsunami just crashing on everyone.
Mhm.
No, so it's crazy because I was so, like, I did not talk to anyone. And now you can't shut me up
Yeah,
now.
it's
Like,
very, very grating and offensive.
very much so. And so I see like family members now that like haven't seen me in like forever, and they're just like shocked, dumbfounded. They don't know who I am because
What
they're
do you
like
think
that.
changed? Like, what was the turning point for you when you started
Um,
speaking out more?
I think I started coming out of my shell when I started dancing in my halau. I
Mhm.
was maybe 7 or 8, I think, around that time. And I was super like self-conscious and shy. But I remember like when we had to start, like when our dance class started, we have to do like our halau chant. And that always like got me because it was just like me alone
Mhm.
having to say this chant out loud. And then finally, I think I just did it. And everyone was just like shocked. And then
Oh.
also, like, dancing at our performances, like that is pretty extreme for someone who's like so shy and like introverted, and then having
Yeah.
to like perform in front of like hundreds of people. I think that also helped um break me out, but I think it's just been a gradual thing. And now that I'm in, I guess, adulthood, I still think I'm like 17, a child.
You are.
I quite literally am. Um, yeah, but now that I've just like, have been going, break the shackles of like childhood, and now I'm kind of like out on my own.
Mm.
I think I've been coming into myself a little bit more, and now I'm just so loud and so unabashedly me and vocalizing my opinions that it's just shocking to everyone.
Well, I love it. We're here for it. I think all too often, especially Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, like people in our community, we get taught that, just be silent, respect your elders, don't make a lot of trouble because
Hmm.
you are an other in this society, but you don't want to be like the focus of attention because we're always being pitted against like black and brown people too. Like you have to be the good minority and, be that model
Because we're the
minority.
models.
Yeah, so the fact that people like us, especially as women, that we're talking and we're valuing our voices and sharing that, I mean, that's like a big, the personal is political. So this is like a political act. So see, if you think this podcast is stupid, you're wrong because this is gonna end racism. This is what
It's
this is
going to
about.
end it quite.
So I have a question, Laura, before you get back to your tale, your Oliver Twist autobiography. You said that you had to code switch a lot, which is something I
Mhm.
totally identify with as well. And I still find myself doing that a lot. Do you feel like you still have to do that now as a grown woman? And can you give like an example of what that means for you?
I was actually just thinking about this because also while growing up, like we had, birthday parties and other like big celebrations. And so I remember when I was little, I had a birthday party, and all of like my mom's side and my dad's side were coming. And then I think I invited like 2 or 3 friends, and I was so stressed. Like I like had a mental breakdown because I was like, I'm different people to like every single person in here. Like how can I successfully like manage and navigate like switching between my three personalities, like, seamlessly. I think I was probably in like first grade. Maybe. How old are you then? Like, so I was like, yeah, I was around that age, and I just was so overwhelmed. And so ever since then, I kind of like kept everything separate. Um, but now, like, I haven't tried it. To be honest, because I'm still like have so much anxiety about it, but I think I want to get to a space where I'm just me at work, at like home, at with friends, with colleagues, with like anyone. I want to get to a space where I'm just the same person and everyone knows me as the same person. So I'm working on it. So we'll see.
I like that. That's a good goal though, because I think like as multiracial women growing up in divorced households and then just being in our society, we've got to like perform for other people all the time, and the onus of responsibility is on us to appease others and make them comfortable, which ties into the top, the focus of our podcast is, if we as who we are as complete whole individuals makes you uncomfortable, well, that's something that you have to reckon with, because maybe you're just imposing expectations on us
Mm-hmm.
because of how we look or who we are. But I think to be your whole self and be that in all these spaces and take up that space and not have to acquiesce and silence yourself, like that is like an ongoing mission, and it's hard. And I commend you for doing that, because I think that's important. And you're such a wonderful person. Why wouldn't we want all
Oh,
of Laura in the
I'm
room?
getting so uncomfortable with compliments.
Good. I'm gonna give you so many compliments to make you uncomfortable. Love is really a trigger word for me and Laura. So
Much of a trigger word. I hate it.
yeah, so that makes us uncomfortable. Okay, so what
Very
else
much so.
happened in your childhood or upbringing that you want to share today?
I think what like led me to you is and that's like a good segue into our next thing of how we met. But I've always tried to find community in every space I occupy. So like, me being in a halal growing up, that was a really great experience and great like time for me, because I was able to be with like people that were like-minded and that had the same like goals and passions or interests. And so like in high school I started the PI club, and then when I went to college, like I sought out spaces that had my community, my PI community, and that's how I met Professor Jade.
Oh my god. Everybody's like, she's a professor? What?
She's a professor.
We do have to say that Allura and I met on a college campus, but in no way is this podcast or anything we say affiliated with the views, opinions, or missions of the college. We are completely disowned from the college as we are from our families. So,
very
yes. So we have to say that off the bat. But yeah, we met, and I think, that's a crucial difference between Allura and I, is that I've always been such a loner, just paralyzed by the idea and the overwhelming feeling of truth that everybody hates me. So I really haven't sought out community just as a way to buffer myself from the pain of rejection. So I've never really had close friends or community. I mean, like when you describe halal, and I've seen you dance and perform before, like it's not just the people you're doing it with, but it's like tapping into this ancestral tradition where you're a part of something so much bigger than yourself too. And I'm always like moved to tears, even though I'm in the audience acting like this doesn't make me feel anything inside. I'm like, oh God, everybody's here, the spirits. But yeah, I've always been kind of a lone wolf doing everything. I think in high school, like I was like a punk rocker, had like a pink mohawk, and
I'm obsessed with that stage.
Yes, and I dated lots of bad boys with tattoos. Who played
I love it.
Oh my gosh, as every mother's worst nightmare. But aside from that kind of sense of community, I don't think I've really had that until, I came to the school where I met Allura. And honestly, the Pacific Islander community has embraced me more than any other group that I've ever encountered in my life. In terms of being mixed, like that's not even a question. Like they, because everybody's mixed in the Pacific Islander community pretty much. And just like this familial sense of like we're brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles. And if you hear Allura call me auntie, it's not because I'm her literal auntie. And fuck you for thinking I'm that old. But but like that's how we met, is like in this familial bond of like being auntie. So yeah, okay, so to take us back,
want to hear it from your perspective, and then I'll say my perspective on how we met.
Yeah, and please feel free to stop me and like fill me in, because I was trying to go back over it and remember. I was looking at your old work and stuff. I was like, to jog my memory, but I know there's gaps.
You were looking at my old work?
I look at it.
You still have it?
Oh my God. We have everything online. Yes, I creepily peruse your work. Allura
I love
is a
that.
published writer anyway, so you can find her work out there. She's a brilliant writer. Okay, so about 5 years ago,
oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
I know, isn't that wild? Time goes by fast.
It does.
So 5 years ago, I had just had my first biological baby. So I have a daughter who's technically a stepdaughter, but I call her my own, and she's older. But the first baby that came from my body is about 5 years ago. And I was like hit in the face and the spirit and the soul with really, really, really bad, like near hospitalization, postpartum depression. And I've struggled with mental health issues all my life, and it's something that is in my family as well. So I wasn't a stranger to those feelings, but it just got so bad after I had the baby that I was really struggling. And 2 months after I had the baby, I came back to work.
2 months?
Yeah. So I had planned to have the baby during the summer so that I wouldn't miss work, because I'm a workaholic. Because if I'm not working 80 hours a week, I feel like I'm worthless and no one will ever love me and no one is proud of me. We're just scratching the surface of the sickness today, y'all.
Just scratching the surface. This is only episode 1.
Yeah. So postpartum depression. Just a light little aperitif.
Just a little sprinkle.
Yeah, a little amuse-bouche. But yeah, it was really bad. And I think it's important to talk about, because I think a lot of people suffer from it. And especially in our communities, we don't talk about it because it's just assumed like, oh, motherhood's hard, something you're supposed to do. Especially when you come from a line of people of color who have been oppressed and killed off. I mean, my family's from Vietnam, so we had like 3 million motherfuckers killed off. And so to have a baby is not just like a individual blessing. It's like this act to say, you cannot get rid of us. Like, we will have our families, we will love, we will carry on. Our culture does not end with a war, So not to get emotional about that, but I'm like gonna get up on a soapbox and be like, babies are the future. But anyway, so there's this expectation, I know it's going to be hard, but I'm just going to do it. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I want to do. I owe it to my child to do anything and everything for her to be healthy and well. And I just found myself like overextended and really struggling with a lot of internal thoughts of like suicide and self-loathing and doubt and just anxiety about, this precious little baby that you love more than anything in the world, and just assuming that I would fuck it up because I've always been taught and told, and I've internalized this voice of like, you fuck everything up. You're a failure. Like, you're the worst. Why are you even doing that? Like I said, amuse-bouche. Okay, so this sets the stage for me coming into a new semester. And so another pressure that I had of being a new mom is breastfeeding, because, like, I busted my ass to go to school and like work 3 jobs for 15 years so that I could live in a neighborhood where people walk their dogs with sweaters on and shit. Like, I made it. My kids will not grow up in the projects. Like, we're in a good neighborhood. But the the other side of this neighborhood is that everybody's like busting their titties out everywhere and like breastfeeding a 6-year-old. And I'm like, okay, so I had it in my head, like, oh, I gotta breastfeed. Like, this is the natural way in the suburban neighborhood. So I was having a really hard time, like, making milk, and I was super stressed about it. So when I come back to work, next door to the classroom where we met Allura, there was this tiny little closet with like a beat up old rocking chair. And there was like one picture of a teddy bear on the wall and like a dusty fake ficus in the corner. And this was like our breastfeeding room. And it was right next door to an office where there was a bunch of high schoolers that come to our school to like transition.
What a perfect position to place that.
So I'm in there like frantically trying to pump milk out of my breast. All the male listeners right now are like, this is a podcast for me.
This is it.
But I'm like so frantic trying to be like, I'm a terrible mother if I can't do this. And I also have to go to work in 10 minutes. I have to do this really fast. All during that time, echoing over the voices in my head are these voices of high school boys who are like, did you see that ass? You know, like, I'm gonna play basketball at 3:00 today. And it was so loud. And I was like, what am I doing? So I would come into our class with Laura so overwhelmed. And I'd just be like, oh my God, did I put my boobs back? Like, is the milk in my little, you know, my little igloo cooler that I bought? And then I'd be like, okay, let's learn about writing and literature. So I was just so struggling to balance all of these things when I came into the semester where I met Allura. And, you know, feeling really insecure about my ability to perform all these roles that were now part of my new identity as a mother. And, you know, being a professor is always like a new role to me. The beginning of every semester, I feel like I'm going to barf for like the first 6 weeks. Because I'm like, why did I choose this job where people are like looking at my face, you know, grotesque mixed race face and listening to this dumb voice? And what do I have to say? And so I had all of that. And then I come into this room meeting this new cohort, and I see Allura, beautiful as the day is long, which is a trigger for me because I grew up around very beautiful women.
I hate her.
And I always felt like the mutt in the room. I'm like, how did I don't know if you remember one time I did a presentation for our community on the campus, and I had pictures of my family, and all the guys were like, hello. Like my sister, my aunt, my mom, my grandma, they were all like, had little pup tents over my family. And so I've constantly gone through life thinking like, oh my God, I'm so ugly. So when I see beautiful women, I get super nervous, like not in like a sexual way, but just like, oh my God, her beauty just spotlights the ugliness of myself. So I see Laura and I'm like, great, this beautiful bitch is sitting right in the front row. We have to look at her perfectly manicured eyebrows.
Always in the front row.
Yes, and your eyebrows kind of just, you would sit there like you'd get all your stuff organized, like paper, pencils, color-coded highlighters, and then you would sit, like cross your hands, and then your eyebrows would slightly lift, like a drawbridge, to be like, what now, bitch? What can you possibly do? And I was like, oh my God, this chick is going to give me so many problems over the course of the semester because, and now that I know Allura better, I know like where that over preparedness, like super professional, like ready to go.
It also comes from self-hate.
Yeah, so I understand that now, but at the time I was like, this girl is 18 years old and has it way more together than I ever will. Like, I will just die shriveling in her shadow. And that's my degree in creative writing for you. But honestly, I felt intimidated by you.
Oh my gosh.
And as the semester went on, you know, I'm always like, my teaching is kind of like stand-up comedy, like always trying to do
it's so good.
Thank you. To make y'all laugh, but also learn and, you know, love each other and all of that business. And I was just like, oh man, Allura just hates me. And I feel like everything that I have her do is so below her, especially once I started reading your writing. And I'm like, wow, she's brilliant. Like, she's so insightful and so eloquent, and I don't really have anything that I could possibly teach her, And so I just felt very futile with Allura in the room. But at the same time, on my best days, she was pushing me better because I knew that Allura would want to be challenged, and she wanted, also uplift others in the class that were maybe struggling, because Allura is definitely that leader. Like, it's not just about her doing well. That only happens if everybody else around her is doing well. So it would push me to be a better teacher, but I still felt like it was never enough, just because that's how my brain works. I could work and work and work, and I could win awards, and I could, get all the accolades, and people could give me positive feedback, but my mind is so tweaked out that I think that every compliment is a lie and is like part of some ruse to
Literally.
to
I'm hearing you speak, and I'm like, she sits on a throne of lies.
Well, finally, I'm the queen of something. So I always think that positive feedback is a lie. Like, it's just trying to make me feel better. Like, I feel like it's out of pity,
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from lots of things from my past. And it wasn't until someone that we worked with took me aside one day, and we were just chatting about other things, happening at the school and how to help students and all that. And then her tone kind of changed, and she looked at me and she's like, I want to tell you something. And I was like, oh my God, she hates me too. I'm fired. My life is over. So I'm like catastrophizing, like this whole snowball of things I think is coming. She goes, there's a group of women in your class, and I think you know who they are. And they told me that they really love you because of the way that you show them what it could mean to be a woman in this community, and the stories that you share about how hard it was growing up, and that they feel like they're not alone in it. And I was like, oh. Like, here's something that's unsolicited. We weren't talking about it. The people were not there. She had like made time and effort to relay this to me. And, one of the women she was talking about was Allura. And I was like, oh my God, all this time I had invested so much like fear and anxiety into thinking that this overprepared bitch hated me. I say that in the most loving way.
I know. I felt it, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
melted my heart.
We love through hate. But maybe all this time it was kind of a recognition, and like a seriousness of that recognition of, a mutual understanding of, we come from hard places, we've been through hard things, and now we're here for each other, and we're in this work together. And it didn't completely alleviate a lot of my insecurities, because I don't think those will ever fully go away. I'm accepting that that's a part of who I am, and I'm just learning to deal with them better. But I think that day was a real watershed moment of, changing the way that I see things, and definitely how I saw Allura. And I think that Allura, once you weren't a student of mine anymore, we were like, game on, it's friendship time, soulmates for life. And yeah, every time I see Allura, like, we laugh so hard, and we tell jokes that nobody else is laughing at. They're like side-eye.
No one else finds it funny.
Yeah, everybody looks like they're about to make a phone call for us, But we definitely get each other. So I think I thought that you hated me, but it was love all along. So, but
it really
please
was.
correct me and tell me that my whole story was wrong.
No, it's crazy because I didn't know like 80% of that story, which is so crazy to me. And so it's so inaccurate to my side. Like, I thought she hated me, obviously, because I too have a complex where I think everyone hates me. Even if they give me no evidence to the contrary. Right. I just That's my first question to anyone is like, so they hate me, right? And they're just like, Allura,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. And I've seen people try and console you and reassure you. No, I
Yeah.
actually really like you. And you're like,
No, but the more
no.
they say that, the more I think they're feeding me lies,
Yeah, same.
you know? So anyway, so I was a freshman in college, like in this new program, sitting in Auntie's class. I like did not know what to expect. I was actually very frightened. I even took like um the support class because I was like, no, I'm gonna need all the help I can get. Like this is college, like it's gonna be so much like rigorous and so much more crazy than high school ever was, you know, and I'm a perfectionist and I need to be doing 130% on my rough days, you know, like so I had to be uber prepared, and Jade's class ended up being like my favorite to this day. She just has this like presence and way about her teaching and just her upfront that it's just, and she just connects things and makes the content like easy to grasp, and it just like sticks with you, and it just like makes something click that it just is like, oh yes, that's what it's supposed to be. That's like what like high school was supposed to teach me. You know, like
Thank you.
all that. And so she's like the most amazing professor ever in this planet, and I stand by that. But what really like got me and what made it my favorite is like all of your stories and just how like vulnerable and personable you were, and just I remember you saying stories about your grandma, about your mother, about just, you know, everything in your past, and I'm like, how is she this open and just this comfortable speaking to strangers about this? And so it really touched me because I never had that before, like not even with my own family members, you know? And so I just loved going to her class. And it was like a 2.5 hour, almost 3 hour class. And it just went by in minutes, I felt
Oh,
like. And
that's good.
all the assignments, like our first assignment was a personal narrative. And I was just like, you want me to write about myself?
Essay, and
Thank
Alura's
you.
published it, and I've continued to hear over the years people who have read that essay and have been really moved by it and really identified
What?
with it. Yeah. So you're a
Okay.
star. You're pretty much famous.
Thank you. I think you're speaking lies, but it's fine. And so when I was in the class, I too thought she hated me. Like I was like, she's my favorite professor, but I feel like she hates me. And then she even like has her like personal phone number in her syllabus, and she's like, text me anytime when you have a question or if it's about life and you just need someone. And so I remember even after I was no longer your student, I still had your phone number, but I just like refused to text you because I was like, no, she hates me. And anything I send to her, she's going to be like, what does this bitch want? Like,
Just block, block.
literally block. And no matter how long she said, she was like, Allura, please text me. Like, send me all the memes. Send me all your grievances. I was like, she's lying.
Hmm.
And I still feel that way. I even thought, like, when I texted you this morning about film day, you were going to be like, sorry, can't do it. Like,
Yeah. Just bail out at the last minute. Peace.
literally, I just always have that fear. But we have such a strong, fun, interesting relationship. And I love the origin of our story is that we both hated each other, thought we hated each other,
Yeah. And still
and
do.
still do. But we're moving past it. We're healing, growing.
Well, to turn it into a positive to make us more uncomfortable because we hate toxic positivity. But what I'm
So
really
much so.
realizing is that we have those feelings because we are like tough as shit. We built up all of this armor pretty much to shield ourselves from people actually hating us or being mean to us or making us feel bad about who we are. And so we bring that into the world. And when we meet someone that we feel like is a kindred spirit, there's so much more opportunity to be hurt because you actually care about that person, you know? Like, it would wound me so deeply, like, if we weren't friends anymore. So I think that's why we always have that buffer on of preparing ourselves for the worst, because sometimes in our lives we have been through the worst. And so we're just, I think that's a strong survival skill that we have, but we just need to learn to put it down when we're with the right people, and I think
Yeah.
we're one of our right people in our lives.
We're so right, people. We were so afraid of the vulnerability we would have with each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's like memes nonstop, mostly about Game of Thrones and stuff.
Oh my gosh, don't even get us started.
We need to have a
Obsessed.
segment on that.
We do. We do.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is how we met.
And
Long story.
listeners, if you have questions, if we're leaving out obvious
Mhm.
logistical gaps in our story, you can always post a question
Yes,
and
call
we'll
us
answer
out.
it. Yeah, well, maybe we'll make videos to answer it, or we'll answer it on the
Ooh.
next episode, or we'll do the social media thing.
Yes, the social media.
Allura is excellent at making memes. So we might
Oh,
answer your
thank you.
question in a meme. So if you
Yes.
feel so inclined, ask us a question.
Ask us questions. Be our friends.
Yeah,
And
we want this to be a community space. We're sharing,
right,
we want you to share too. Which kind of
right.
takes us into, what the hell is this podcast going to be, Allura? What can listeners
Literally.
expect?
Okay. What can you expect? Well, you can expect uncomfortable topics all the time. And just uncomfortable content. We're hoping to release episodes twice a month. Some with us, some with guests. Roughly around 45 minutes to an hour, maybe beyond, depending on our feelings, depending on the content, subject matter, and how much ammo we have. But yeah, that's what the
Yeah, and
podcast logistics are. We're hoping to release it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the main places.
mhm.
What else?
And if you tell all your friends about it and we're getting likes and you want to hear more, we're going to have like little special things that you can do where Allura and I drink alcoholic beverages, las bebidas, and we fully share uncomfortable things. And Allura's laugh gets louder and louder with
It
every
does. Can
sip.
you believe that?
Yeah, and we have all kinds of special topics and little incentives for
Mm-hmm.
you. So
Ooh,
spread
so
the word,
enticing.
share
Yes.
around.
I want to get up to, let's say, 100 followers, starting small,
Mhm.
by next month.
I like it. 100 vulnerable minds for us to poison.
Yes. For
Yeah.
us to poison.
Hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about things that make us uncomfortable every week, and our guests too. I'm really
Oh my
excited.
gosh. Okay, so I had an idea.
Okay.
So I want to treat every guest that comes on as if we're on a first date, and I want to ask all of the like hard-hitting questions that we can't normally ask on a first date. Like, what's your relationship with your mother? Have you ever been to therapy? Like, like, just
What is
what's
your most
like,
embarrassing bathroom moment?
literally, like, I want to ask all the hard-hitting questions like right off the bat, so that we just get you there and then
Oh
you
my
stay in
gosh.
that place.
You know what I saw? So, full disclosure, one
Mhm.
of my guilty pleasures is that I watch Bachelor in Paradise because
Love it.
it is just like a Disney-fied version of people who want to go to the beach and fuck each other and spread STDs rampantly. There's a STD wherever a churro cart would be at Disneyland. That's what Bachelor in Paradise is. So I was watching that, and there's this heinous guy, heinous, so self-absorbed, which purely stems from insecurity. I don't know what I just said there. Purely stems. Surely. I've been sick, y'all. It's been a fever. My brain cells have dissipated. But so this guy, he just keeps talking about how he like owns a pizza place and he thinks he's real hot shit for that. And he goes on this date with this beautiful girl in a bikini who's like down for sex. And he ruins it because he keeps talking about himself. He doesn't ask her a single question. But the one question that he finally pivots to her and asks is, what do you like most about me? That is something we have to ask our guests.
Literally, yeah.
Because it's so just offensively megalomaniacal. I laughed so hard. I was like, this motherfucker works in a pizza joint. And he's like, what do you like most about me? So, we learn lessons from everywhere.
Yes. Okay, that's perfect. We're doing that.
Yeah. And we need to say that a lot of our guests are coming from our community, like people who have known us from where we met. And so you're going to hear like lots of Pacific Islander voices, maybe some Asian Americans, our peeps.
Our peeps.
So it'll be fun.
It'll be so fun. We really just want to uplift this community by talking about all our taboo things.
Yes. Yeah, we're peeling off the taboo. We're breaking the silences, and it's going to be wholly uncomfortable, and we're here for it.
So uncomfortable. I hope everyone's gagging. So should we end this off with what we'll start our podcast episodes with?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so we're going to be starting every episode from here on out with a nice little rant or a complaint, something that is making us feel like we have an itch that we just can't scratch. So something very irritating, because we have to let all those anxieties go and start with, a fresh, clean slate every week. And then we're going to go into some other questions, Allura.
Yes, we'll discuss what's made us uncomfortable, or who did we make uncomfortable?
So many choices.
So many choices. I feel like I make so many people uncomfortable, especially in the workplace setting.
Oh yeah, you definitely do. I've seen their
very
faces.
much so. Yeah.
I just kind of watch it. I'm like,
because I'm definitely like the loudest person, and it's indoors, office spaces. Yeah, so yeah, but
we can always find you, which is nice. We just listen.
I think so.
It's like a howler.
It is like a right. You have always, I always wanted to be like an assassin, growing up, but I like knew that couldn't happen because I'm just the loudest person you've ever met in your life. Like I would announce it. There's nothing stealth about me.
No, that's true. But imagine if you could harness your skills so well that you were quiet leading up to it, and then the last thing they hear is your laugh. And it would be like your calling card, like a Batman villain,
That is the best thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's never too late to fulfill your dreams, is what I'm saying.
That's very true. I wanted to be like a foreign ambassador so that I would get diplomatic immunity, and then I could run my assassin business on the side. That was my goal coming out of high school.
Well, you still could. You're still very young, and you've done all the research. You watch every serial killer show. Oh my God, Allura.
Yes.
Have you watched the Hulu special on Armie Hammer? Hollywood?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay, this is one of your assignments. I'm going back to Professor. Okay. You need to watch this so we can talk about it on the podcast, because I have never been so shook by crazy incestuous white privilege.
Weirdness. Love the incestuous weirdness.
I think I texted you about cannibalizing Instagram model.
Oh, I love it. Okay, I'm gonna watch it today.
It's a lot of fun.
Amazing.
Okay, so signing off on cannibalism, everyone. This concludes our first episode. You can follow us on Instagram or the IG or the gram or the Insta, whatever generation you belong to and whatever slang you call it. We're at TMMU Podcast. You can also visit our website, subscribe to the podcast, and do all those things. And with that, Allura, our closing words are...
Until next time, make good choices!